Hey guys, Pete here. Have to say up front, this video is going to contain some book spoilers about what happened at the end of Season 5 of The Expanse and about the breakaway Martian fleet and their plan for Laconia. The opening excerpt I'm going to read is from the epilogue of the 5th book, so now you have been warned. The screen flipped to a series of technical drawings. There was more than enough about those to disturb him as well. They called all the alien technology by the name protomolecule, but of course, that far-traveled set of life-hijacking microparticles was only one object in a much grander toolbox. And if Cortazar had interpreted the top clearance data from the MCRN probes correctly, what they had found would be much easier for humanity to tame and make use of. Still, the changes Cortazar wanted for the Barkeith were unpleasantly organic. Less like they were fitting a new model of airlock on the ship, and more like they were carving it into some kind of colossal prosthesis. It's the beginning of something very new and very powerful, and if good people don't step in to accept the power, bad ones will. It was what Admiral Duarte had told him the night he'd brought Sauveterre into the fold. It had been true then, and it was true now. He switched on the camera, adjusted his hair, and began recording. Alright, so a lot of people were asking for information about what happened to the Barkeith, what's going on beyond the Laconia ring, and what exactly we were looking at in that end credits scene. I'm going to look at some of the things we know from the books, but in a way I hope encourages you to go out and read them yourself, rather than me just giving things away that are confirmed in the final trilogy. The show obviously cuts a lot of things that happen in the books out, and one place where this really jumped out at me watching Season 5 for the first time was in Monica's story. When she first meets with Holden on Tycho, she brings him information about ships going missing as they're transiting the ring. Out of 470 ships passing through the rings, 13 of those had just vanished. It's a relatively small number, but if you think about it in percentages, it's almost a 3% loss rate. Because Holden has a healthy fear of all things Gatebuilder related, after his experiences with the investigator inside the ring station and on Ilus, the missing ships obviously pique his interest and he starts to look into it. Monica had a plan when she came to him, and that was to use Fred Johnson's protomolecule sample to try to contact the investigator directly, but he's not interested in trying that at all. He starts to dig around, but then there's plenty to distract him from the missing ships when the rocks hit Earth, and then that goes on the back burner for the most part. At the same time, Bobby's running an investigation on Mars. She meets up with Alex after he comes back, and she asked him to use his contacts at the Navy to try to talk to somebody about some missing ships she's come across. In the show, this is where he goes to hear Sauveterre speak at the War College and later has dinner with Babbage. In the books, he meets with someone different. He meets with a commander named Winston Duarte. Off the record, Duarte says he's been noticing things going missing as well. He's doing his own investigation, but since he's in on it, he tries to point Alex in the wrong direction. He gives Alex the name of someone to go talk to, but when he gets there, he finds out this person has been murdered. So by the time the Barkeith approaches the Laconia gate, the idea that some ships go into the rings but never come out the other side is already established. The Barkeith is our example of what that looks like when it happens. From what we see in the show and the description of the event in the book, it's clear that we're supposed to connect this to the unknown aggressors, the alien entities that killed off the Gatebuilder civilization. I already went into that in my Season 5 Ending Explained video, so I won't do it again, but at this point in the story, there really aren't any other suspects that could be behind these ships' disappearances. Based on the small set of data, almost 3 out of every 100 ships that transit the rings disappear. Holden never really figured anything out, but at the end of Book 5, when Naomi comes back and they're reunited, she takes an interest in this data as well. Things are such a mess that nobody really is paying attention to this. Colony ships are disappearing, and those are loaded up with a lot of things that are useful, especially to belters. So some people are chalking it up to piracy. Outside of Monica, Naomi, and Holden, and the rest of the Rossi crew, it's just not on the top of anybody's list to look into. And because the Barkeith is part of the breakaway fleet and the Free Navy is now controlling Medina Station, that disappearance isn't something people are going to be paying attention to outside of the Laconians themselves. So who are these people? Duarte is mentioned in the excerpt I opened the video with, although you'll notice he's promoted himself to the rank of admiral. but it's the same guy that Alex met, and he is the brains behind the operation. The show switched out Alex meeting with Sauveterre instead of Duarte, but Duarte's still named whenever Sauveterre's talking to Marco. Notice that Sauveterre says he was brought into the fold, and the simple declaration from Duarte really sums things up. He says, "It's the beginning of something very new and very powerful, and if good people don't step in to accept the power, bad ones will." So obviously, in this scenario, Duarte sees himself and this breakaway fleet that he put together as the good people. And their motivation to break away, to make a move, is everything we saw happen in the first 4 seasons. First, we had the protomolecule. It arrived on an extrasolar object. It's created by an alien civilization. While it's incredibly dangerous and turns out to cause a lot of problems, there's really not a scenario where humanity doesn't do something with it. Same thing with the ring gates opening. There's plenty of reasons not to use them, but it's not realistic to think that people won't. If you think about real world history, there really isn't any example you can think of where an opportunity for advancement like this presented itself and humanity said, "Nah, I don't think that's a good idea," and just walked away from it. That's really at the core of what Duarte believes. And he also thinks that the current leaders of Mars and the Martian military as it is are making critical mistakes, and they're letting the opportunity pass them by. They think that the opportunity to colonize the new planets that all have breathable atmospheres will be the end of the Martian dream on Mars, so they want to take that somewhere else. They want to start with a clean slate and make it pure, and they want to be free to apply it without anything holding them back. In the show, we got that from Sauveterre and Babbage's conversation, and you see that she has the Kool-Aid drinker look in her eyes when she says we need to be more pure than Mars ever was. That's who they are. As far as how they picked the Laconia system, that's hinted at in the excerpt as well. It says if Cortazar had interpreted the top clearance data from the MCRN probes correctly, what they had found would be much easier for humanity to tame and make use of. When the ring gates opened, Mars and Earth rushed to send probes through the gates to see what was on the other side. They collected a lot of data and had a pretty good idea about what the systems looked like. Due to his position, Duarte had access to this data, and he noticed that the planet Laconia had a protomolecule artifact orbiting it. That's what we see in the sky behind Cortazar in the TV show, and I'll get into a little bit more about what that is towards the end of the video. Duarte's plan was to get a hold of some active protomolecule, find the best scientists he could to work with it, and create enough chaos inside Sol System that he could get to Laconia and set up shop. They know what happened on Ilus, but think the rewards outweigh the risks of turning things on and decide to take the gamble. Cortazar is an important part of this equation because he is quite literally the person with the most experience studying the protomolecule. He's also had his brain altered while he was at Protogen to relieve him of any pesky hangups that might come along from having empathy, so he has that going on as well. The show sort of switched up how he came to be employed by Duarte. There's actually a whole novella called The Vital Abyss that covers his unorthodox recruitment for the project. That's definitely worth a read if you want an idea of how Duarte decides that he's the right guy. So that's who the breakaway fleet are, and how they chose Laconia as their new home. As far as the ships going Dutchman, or being eaten when they try to transit the rings, we should learn a lot more about that in the next season. The novella Strange Dogs covers the period of time when the protomolecule arrives on Laconia from the perspective of a family of some of the first scientists that were there, and I highly recommend reading that. We might even see some of that in season 6 because the timelines sort of overlap. Now, I'll explain what the end credits scene is, but I'll give you another chance to bow out first because it does spoil some future plot points. You still really should read the books yourself to experience these things as they were intended. But since the information is out there on the wiki, I will talk about it here. It's not like I'm in possession of some esoteric scrolls or something, and I've seen it out there where people say that they guessed what it was just from watching the show anyway. What you see in the sky orbiting Laconia is a pair of orbiting platforms that the gate builders used for building their ship. What Duarte saw was that they had left a ship or something like it halfway through its construction. He saw this as an opportunity to get that technology for himself, get the sample and the right scientists, and pick up the gate builders' work right where they left off. As the credits roll and we move through the clouds, we see that he's put the plan into action as there's a glimpse of the active protomolecule on the gate builder's unfinished ship. And that is where I'll leave things. Go read the books. I've got links to them in the description. Let me know what you think about this video, what you think about what's going on with the Laconians. And if you want to talk about future spoilers, that's cool. Just mark them if they go into future plot points. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.